Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Kathor Vaani. We are excited to bring you here an insightful podcast session with today's guest, Mr. Mohit Dugar. Mohit Dugar is currently working as a territory sales manager at UltraTech Cement and is a proud alumni of IIM Rohtak. In his current position, he specializes in sales and distribution, business development, and people management. We welcome you, Mohit, and we are happy to have you among us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, for this podcast, we have gathered few questions from our fellow batchmates and also from others, and we will be happy to have your answers for this question. So,
Sure.
starting with it, you're currently the youngest territory sales manager in your team, and how does it affect your day-to-day work life, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of it?
All right. So technically, I think there is no difference because I'm expected to perform the same duties, the same KRAs are available as for me as well. But if you look at the perspective from the on ground, so there are two angles to it. First, traditionally, this industry has always seen an average age of territory sales heads of an average of 38 to 42. But when a 25, 26-year-old guy comes in and handles a team whose average age would be around 35, 37, so automatically you have to ensure that congeniality is there. You are able to align with people, their thought process. So from that angle, of course, I have to be understanding with them. That's one. And secondly, if you look at it from the market perspective, I think when you talk to them about their business agreements, when you talk to them the kind of language that they understand, right? So automatically that respect generation is done, irrespective of the age. And kind of the pedigree that all of us have, I think in the market, it simultaneously also gets you that respect that you require in order to lead a particular depot or a territory for that. So technically, I think it isn't as much different as it is, but yes, there are extra efforts which you are expected to do. You're expected to ensure that all of the stakeholders are able to relate with you as well. So that's an additional element probably that's required from my end.
Yeah, that's true. Everywhere we go, there are expectations for us to fulfill and the next thing we want you to talk a lot about is there's an intrinsic fear in the minds of our students when they hear about sales role. Why do you think there is a fear because of this sales role, and what can be done about it?
All right. So sales role typically, if you look at if I'll ask you to draw a mind map, so probably you'll look at a sales guy who's there at the counters from morning 9 to 7. You will see them in the rural counties doing 15 to 20 odd shops a day, taking orders. So that's the sales perspective people do have. So first thing has to be understand why we have an intrinsic fear. So it's not that before joining here I didn't have a fear. Of course, there was there were butterflies in my stomach as well before joining this particular role. But when you look at the intrinsic value that this particular role will provide, right? So if you're a product-based organization, if you're not able to understand the customers, automatically you won't be able to do whatever role you are in very well, right? You might not be able to exceed the expectations or the general expectations from you from that particular role. So sales from that angle, if you look at, so people do need to understand it's a relatively more extrovert kind of role wherein you go out and meet people. So if you're comfortable with that, if you're comfortable meeting people, trying to understand people, getting their perspectives, channelizing that into your business goals as well. So if you're able to combine these two, you'll do really well in sales. Initially, you might feel a little bogged down. That this is a little example to start off. When I joined this role, I had no prior experience of sales. There was a pressure anyway. So when targets were given, when you go to those particular dealers from our angle, so there are a lot of rejection. So of course, rejection will be there. So that learning how to handle rejection is also part of this role. So that's the first part of your question. The second part of your question, if you look at it, how to remove that fear, right? I think there's nothing better than actually getting or deep diving into it, right? So there is no role wherein sales is not required, right? If you look at us, like when we are sitting for our interviews back 3 years back, 4 years back, I think we're trying to sell ourselves, nothing else, right? We were the product, we had USPs, and we wanted to show that we can add value to you, and that's what a product does as well, right? It's the price to value composition. So with that perspective, I think every single individual, right, is in the role of sales. Now, how easily are you able to relate with that? How able are you able to adapt it in your life? I think that makes the change. So initially, yes, you might face a little anxiety or similar situations, but be patient with it. And when it's more of a people role only, like, because eventually you're handling people. So if you get over time, you get comfortable with it. Yeah.
So thanks for that advice. We'll try to follow that. And as a follow-up question, what are the available career paths one could look for while taking a or after taking a specialization in sales?
All right. Before I answer that question, I'll add a personal angle to it. Because why I joined sales, right? So when I joined this organization, I was a fresher, and then I had the opportunity to pick up my core areas. So I could do branding, I could do sales for that matter, strategy roles were there, right? So there were openings inside the organization once the management trainee period was over. There was openings there. My only idea was, before I take up any of the other roles, say branding or strategy for that matter, if I'm not able to understand my customer, right? In this case, if you look at this B2B, there's B2C as well. So we do not directly cater to the customers, but we are in touch. We do understand how their journey is like. So in case of B2B as well, the dealers for that matter, uh, which we call channel partners over here, beside that, there are influencers. So if you don't understand how these stakeholders react, like how their daily life is, I don't think I'll be able to do well in branding also, or strategy for that matter, unless and until I live in their shoes. So that was the objective for the first 5 years at least. I'll try to put myself in frontline roles. When you're in frontline roles, you understand what's happening on the ground, so that next, I mean, whatever step I take, I can always whatever policies I make or whatever changes I recommend, I think I can totally relate what's going to be the impact. The impact will very clearly be calculated. If I make this changes, these are the stakeholders, they're going to react in this way. Before I know the actual on-ground customers, probably I wouldn't be able to do that well. So that was the idea back then. Just answering the question, which roles that they can take. I think if you look at the history, like last 15, 20 years, 25 years history, maximum CEOs are from sales.
Yes.
People have gone from sales to branding, to consulting, to logistics or operations, to even HR for that matter, consulting, to diverse role as per their interest. So, right, when you enter corporate, you don't actually know that, 20 years down the lane, this is what I'm going to do. No, you explore. You explore what is the kind of work that you like to do. And then you try to integrate, right? One role after next, you try to ensure that more or more what you like, you do that in your role. So similarly, I think after sales, everything is open, right? So one of my colleagues is in Dover, and he started off with e-com. So initially he did trade in rural, which we discussed. Then he did e-com. Then he's now in branding. So if you look at three roles, so he wants to shift to. He has already shifted to branding, and post branding, of course, you can do strategy roles, you can do consulting roles. So he can align himself with his goal. So one thing is in mind, what you want has to be at the center of where you want to go. So more and more time you spend understanding as to what you want, I think more clarity will come over time. Roles are open. Every single role is open once sales is done. Uh, Although vice versa is not possible. I mean, not possible in the sense, relatively not possible. There might be 10%, 20% people who might shift. Like after 10 years, 15 years of branding, they might come to sales. But from sales, I think a lot of avenues are there. A lot of avenues are there. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And next, we are going for one of your LinkedIn posts. When I was checking your LinkedIn, we found out that how you got financially independent in 23 months went viral. So majority of MBA students like us have taken educational loan for their studies. So we would love to hear about your journey and any tips you may offer on that.
So I think it so happened, I think like all of us, we take a loan of 16, 18, 20 lakhs. And when the first check hits, when you join the job, you want to party. You want to splurge that money. And that's very natural. That's very natural because, you have lived a certain kind of life and you have always desired to live a certain kind of life. So automatically when that money pops in, so you want to use that. So while that was there, the only idea in my head back then was ki financially independent. The objective was just that I want leverage of freedom. I should not be bogged down by any company or any individual that I have to take up this role. I have to continue doing the work that I don't like just because probably I have bills to pay. So with that intent in mind, that I have to be financially free so that I have the freedom of choice. So what money provides and what the way I see money is it provides you choice, it provides you freedom that you can choose what you want. So with that in mind, probably I think from the first month itself, uh, because also when you start off, you don't have a lot of expenses in place. So of course, some part of family thing is there, but beside that, you're all on yourself. So that's the age you can maximize the kind of percentage of your salary that you can give out. You can give out for investments. You can take out for investments. So that's what I did probably in three categories. I think the post also follow-up post I've spoken that three categories I had focused on. One was mutual funds, right? Mutual funds as well, looking at the long-term perspective. Second was direct equity. So I've been interested in equity earlier as well. It's just that I didn't have that capital. So once that capital kicks in, so that got leveraged in this angle. So a lot of money was then put into equity, and even in equity, I think more focus was done in two angles. So one was in dividend investing. Uh, who doesn't like that every month or every quarter for that matter you have a passive income in place, right? So that was the idea for dividend income. I'm still heavily invested in dividend income because 4 to 5% on an average of my investment generally comes over a year. This is over and above the capital appreciation that is done. So capital appreciation is one part of it, dividend investing one part of it, and third angle would be if you look at the kind of changes that you need to make, that you need to be very clear that I'm okay with investing at particular amount. So when you in whatever X your salary is, if you're okay with investing 30%, 20%, 40%, whatever your case maybe, mine was 60% initially. So if you're okay with that, ensure that you put that amount aside right when you get the salary. Otherwise, at the end of the month, you'll be very clear कि यार investment तो नहीं हुआ. So ideally, when you hit whenever the salary hits in, put it in a separate account, start your investments, and whatever balance you have left, I think that should be your spending amount. Given, of course, it's always gonna vary as well, depending on the individual. That expense ratio will differ, that investment ratio will differ. But whatever you are comfortable with, whatever your objectives is, also initially, you don't need to buy a lot of, I like to call them money draining assets. For example, you can always buy an iPhone 3 years later, 4 years later. So I then had a Redmi 8 or 9, I think. I now carry a OnePlus. and it's okay. I mean, I can buy it in cash if I want, but I choose not to. I choose not to, and that's a personal choice. So in case someone wants to be financially independent, you have to follow a certain route, follow certain spending habits. If not, I think that's a personal choice. That's all. Yeah.
Thanks for the tip, Mohit. That will be really useful for us. We'll keep that in mind and try to follow that too. And for the industry now you are working in, the product which UltraTech focus on is mostly cement. It's a commodity product which has less differentiating factors. So, how do you persuade the consumers to buy your company's brand or product?
Uh, okay. So I think as a product, there is nothing like a commodity anymore, right? So if you look at, I mean, one of my favorites example in terms of products is water, right? Bisleri got sold recently got sold. Tata acquired it, and if you look at the valuation, it's a very healthy valuation, right? Why? Because they have the highest market share. One, two, they sell 1 liter in 20 rupees. All right. When you go to railway, there's also Rail Neer which sells 1 liter in 15 rupees. Okay. There are brands. There are brands that sell 1 liter in 750 rupees as well, right? Evocus is a brand, Even is a brand, right?
Mhm.
They still sell water, nothing else. They're still selling waters. So from 2 rupees pouches to 750 rupees, if you can differentiate that what additional value you're adding, what consistency you're maintaining, what quality standards you are ensuring, where you are available, right? Availability is also an important element, right? Water inside a theater will not be sold at the MRP. Now, of course, because of the government, I mean, you have those free water available. But earlier, if you look at, you won't see even still today. If you look at airport, like there'll be different packaging. There'll be packaging packed for airports, right?
Airports.
100 rupees for 1 liter. For that, I'm just giving an example to understand that it always would depend beyond the commodity. Coming to my industry, if you look at cement for that matter, we have on an average, I'm saying it might differ from region to region, pan India. But if you look at NCR for that matter, we might have brands which are 100 rupees lower than us per bag, right? But why do we charge higher? We charge higher because we provide value. Now, what are those values, right? Supply chain for that matter, availability. So if you look at a product based, if you're not available, you won't be sold, right? Out of sight, out of mind. That's one. Two, if you look at the technical parameters, right, won't go very deeply into that. But in all those parameters, UltraTech has been consistently over the years superseding all other brands. If you move beyond that, if you look at the brand aspect of it, right, it has been built over the years. It has been built keeping in mind that you're ensuring that quality parameter, you're ensuring that availability, you're ensuring the consistency, you're ensuring good consumer experience, right? So when you bring all of those together, people would be ready to pay. Like people will be ready to pay for a mobile phone with all the features for 15,000 and similarly for 1 lakh because they have a brand in place.
Brand.
They are, and the brand is created because of all of these attributes that we just discussed. So I mean, people have moved beyond the commodity. Yes, earlier it was the like brand was in a commodity based product. Brand wasn't as prominent as it is today. But with time, if you see, consumers want to spend less time in taking decisions, and therefore, the importance of brand has actually evolved over these years. They've increased in importance because people don't want to take a lot of time in decision making. Therefore, it's people want to be very sure. I mean, you can never be 100% sure, but you look at guesstimate as well. So they know that okay, I've heard about the XYZ brand. I know it's available. I know it's good. I know if anything happens, I can always come back for any issues. So on and so forth. So with this in place, I think people are able to make decisions better. And therefore, as marketeers, as marketeers and management students, we need to be very clear that how, like, whom are we positioning it to, and what are the elements to align to it, and therefore ensure that the entire ecosystem is created with that in place. Like, who's the end customer? The end customer in mind, with the average, you create that persona in place. You can always create that entire ecosystem with them. So that's our job. That's as management graduates, that's our job to do that.
The next question is like, as we all know, during the pandemic, there were many construction projects that were left hanging. Now the pandemic is over and all those other things are set down. The consumer spending and construction projects are also revving up. What kind of process or progress are you seeing in the sales of construction materials? Have they caught up in the sales figures that were present before this pandemic existed?
Okay. So two parts of your question. I think first part I'll answer regarding the catching up on the trend that you want. So if you look at construction entire industry, right? So there was a unique trend pre-COVID, post-COVID. So just as COVID had hit, right? So and lockdown was announced, there was a reverse urbanization, right? People started going back to their hometowns for longer periods, and they did not know how long are they gonna stay. So since they did not know how long they were gonna stay, they ensured that either they repaired their home, they built additional floors or rooms. Now, what this entire trend led to more consumption in the rural or suburban, right? But when you look at cities like Noida, so during that period, because I'm taking the example of Noida because I am a territory sales of Noida. It's applicable to any metro city for that matter. Now, if you look at these cities, right, people were driving away from these cities to their towns. So the consumption was high in rural and in suburban. It wasn't that demand was low. Even during that period, people, we were growing. And it's interesting to see that as an organization, once the lockdown, the second phase of lockdown was there, then we had announced that we'll be expanding. Approximately 19 million ton expansion plan was announced back in 2021 when the second phase of lockdown was ongoing. That was only because after the first lockdown also trend was seen that consumption of these particular materials in India, probably it's not going to go down for the next 20-25 years. And the reason behind it is that if you look at the average consumption per capita is still in India 1/5 of that of the world. And therefore, over a period, like if you look at this, so when we try to assess the market, when you look at the sales potential or the market potential, I think there's a huge gap. Ideally, the more a market matures, that market potential to sales potential will reduce. The difference will reduce. It will only reduce when more and more people will, move from kacha houses to pakka houses. Right? Once you are there, I think that growth rate will reduce. But that's that 25 years down the line. India has growth in this particular sector. Like, why do we say that consumer, like the FMCG for that matter, is an ongoing, it's an all-season industry? It's because whatever happens, people are gonna consume. Similarly, whatever happens, people are gonna need places to stay. They're gonna build those accordingly, and therefore this trend for us has been upwards. Although upwards with the thinning margins because of geopolitical issues, but demand overall hasn't gotten down for the entire construction space in general, and similarly for us as well.
Thanks for throwing light on those trends going on in the commodity products, Mohit. And now we'll be starting the informal segment, which will be carried out by my fellow member from Alumni Committee, Anjana. Anjana, go ahead.
Yes, so we'll start with the informal segment. So my first question is, how would you describe your time at IIM Rohtak?
My time at IIM Rohtak. Uh, well, in general, probably I thought more of an that time I'll say an exploration because just after graduation, when I joined for MBA, I was not very clear as to what I really wanted, and so I tried doing a lot of live projects because internship, of course, you can just do one, but live projects I try to do a lot. I think that has what led for me to conclude that I wanted to start my career with business development and sales. So I think those are the times when you know that those 2 years you can easily uh, try out stuff before entering the corporate world, before you know that you're going to be paid for adding this value. So in order to get that clarity, I think I was using it over then, and that's all. I think had a lot of good social meetings. That's all.
Okay, good to hear that. Uh, so can you take us through your first month at UltraTech?
Okay. So that's interesting, actually. I think whoever joins an MT program, I think that's there. So over here, it's called that's a honeymoon period, and it's called honeymoon period because you don't have targets, you don't have KRAs, you have leisure to take up multiple projects, but simultaneously you have on you the responsibility to learn the maximum. So for me, I think for the first month, I'll draw it to the 5 month period. Reason being, in those 5 months in itself, I must have taken not less than 30 flights because we first went to Mumbai, and there was the induction for 14 days. We then went to manufacturing. From manufacturing, we went to the entire trade stint. So there's this bifurcation in sales as well, that there's a trade, there's key accounts, there's non-trade, then there's ready mix concrete. So when I say I deal like UltraTech Cement is a 50,000 crore organization. It's not just only cement, right? It's a diverse organization with cement, concrete, other building material products. Like we have construction, waterproofing material. There's dry mix. There's even waterproofing. There's segments in place. Now we have UTech. It's a digital platform for any individual house builder for their end-to-end planning. So with that in place, I think the first 5 months were spent across functions, understanding commercial, logistics, HR. So those 5 months you enjoy a lot because you're just exploring. Okay, this is also new. This is news for me. Everything is news for you. Okay, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. So that's the best part about it, and very grateful for the organization as well. Like if the organization has such a kind of structured program, it really helps you. I mean, 5 years down the line, you won't realize it then. I mean, then it will be minute pieces here and there. Okay, this is what I learned. This is what I learned. But looking backwards, I'm able to interlink everything. I'm in a sales role, but I'm able to understand what's happening in the manufacturing end, what's happening at the logistics end. I can I mean, if I know that there's a delay in the supply, I can relate what are the various factors that were there for the delay because I was there. I was there at the plant. I was there at the yard. I was there with the drivers. I was there educating them about the driver safety XYZ. But the idea is you can always link it backwards. That these are the probable reasons that's there. So it always helps for you to have a holistic view, and that's probably how the first 5 months were gone in a in a snap because you're enjoying that period and you're learning as well. So that's how my first 5 months looked like. Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. So what do you generally do to motivate yourself when it is necessary?
For motivation, I'd like to you know uh, three angles to look at. The first and most important, which over the years I think that has increased, because the higher you rise, I mean, when you're people manager, not everything can be percolated down. You need to understand that you have to filter. You might have a lot of pressure for business, but you need to understand what needs to be percolated down to your team. And for that, I think self-reflection helps me the most. In terms of motivation, I don't know how many people will relate with it, but for me, self-reflection is one of the best methods if I'm down, and there are a lot of times I have had bad days, weeks at end, but when I sit down and reflect, I think it starts making sense. I start relating as to where I went wrong and what next I want to do. So self reflection is one. Attached with this is books. So I'm very close to reading. So on an average, 30-40 books a year. I do. On an average, that's what I read, and most of them are non-fiction. Like in a year, probably I'll read one or two fiction. Uh, the entire is non-fiction. So attaching non-fiction and self-reflection, these are my me times, which helps me get back. Third, I'd say, if you look at in terms of motivation, I think traveling is one which gives me a forward vision. What more I want to do, that drive, that why do I want to do it? Because things are gonna be as such. After 2-3 years from the pedigree that we have, you're gonna have whatever we want. The basic amenities are gonna be clear. So उसके बाद क्या? उसके बाद ये कि अच्छा fine. Now I want to visit Europe. Now I want to, travel to this Tomorrowland. So that's the bucket list that you need to check off. So for that, I think traveling really helps. It really gives you the air as to what you want to do. So that's what really that's what I really use for my motivation. Yeah.
That would like give us the drive to work. So, what is your take on work-life balance, and what do you do to maintain that?
Work-life balance. Okay. So work-life balance, if you look at, I don't particularly would encourage initially to aim for that work-life balance. You will anyway not be working more than 60 hours a week in a standard job, in a standard role. You won't be working more than 60 hours a week. So probably I initially did not look at a lot of these elements because I was hell bent to get that recognition, that because it's a huge organization, 20-25,000 plus employees are there. So, that need of getting recognition is higher. So that's there. But in terms of work-life balance, for us, at least as an organization, we don't have that much of a challenge, right? The managers that I have gotten also, like I've had 3 managers till now, and all 3 of them have been extremely kind in the sense that they understand the limitations, and I'm just grateful for the culture that this organization has provided, because that's what probably I'm going to take it forward. Like wherever I'm going to go, whichever region or across country I'm going to go, I'm going to take it forward and bend it down upon my team as well. So if you look at work-life balance, it happens top down. It doesn't happen bottom up. So if your managers, they give you the kind of leverage that they generally don't call me after 8. So if I look at really actionable print, they don't call me after 8 in general unless it's closing or something. There are, like, I take a lot of leaves as well. So you must have heard corporate leaves are there on paper, not in actual. So it doesn't have. So in that way, I've been very lucky because I just last year I traveled to 12 cities, 12 separate cities, just because I wanted to explore. And I've been lucky that my boss is supportive in that, because if I'm getting my work done, he's like, okay, if you're managing that, he has no issues with that. So if you get that kind of culture, you're lucky. If not, try moving towards that kind of culture in your succession roles. So I've been lucky with that angles in the last 3-4 years. So that's how I've been managing my work-life balance.
Okay. So if you get a chance, will you revisit the past and change things that happened, or go forward and look at the future?
Okay. I don't believe a lot in changing past. I think I'll go for the future. I think I didn't get what I didn't get in the past, or what mistakes I made is what has made me now. and I wasn't ready. If I didn't get it then, I wasn't ready then. And it's good that I didn't get it, because I wouldn't have been able to handle that. So learnings are learnings. I'm happy about that. I'd like to look into the future, what it entails for me.
Okay. So now
Yeah.
we'll move on to the rapid fire session. It will be taken over by Yash.
Okay, so we'll start with the rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Please answer it in a sentence or a word. So yeah, I'll be taking it. So the first word is IIM Rohtak.
Fond memories.
Kathor life.
For the first 2 or 3 months only.
Hostel.
Best time. Friends.
Library.
My 40% of day spent there.
Deadlines.
Sacrosanct.
Mess food.
बाहर का खाना है यार.
Assignments.
On time.
Presentations.
Be creative.
Free riders.
Load them in baggage.
Comfort food.
Chinese. Indian Chinese.
Infusion.
Party time.
And the last one being guest lectures.
Learning opportunities.
Okay, so we are done with the rapid fire round as well.
All
And
right.
it was
It wasn't
really
as scary as it looked.
fun and knowledgeable for us as well.
Thanks a lot,
Yes.
Yash. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohit. Thanks for
We really
giving
had a
us the
great time with
time.
you as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, same here.
thanks for providing your time and giving insightful thoughts and advices for us. We'll try to take those advices and move forward in our life too. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.